professionals have acquired years of experience, which ensures you get the very best. Our experienced staff is waiting to hear from you and to answer any specific questions that you may have on how we can meet your needs. Just ask for a consultation and let us prove our commitment to you as we promise to maintain the highest level of quality and commitment. Your satisfaction is our prime concern. So please, don't hesitate to get in contact with us and let us show you all the great options we have.
And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty, mighty Twitter at coalition_radio, and of course, the mothership at coalitionradio.us, our legacy site, and our new site at coalitionradionetwork.com. It is my great pleasure tonight to introduce someone who's new to the Coalition audience, but is a respected advocate for both the physical and civil rights of folks with physical challenges around the state of Rhode Island and has a national reputation. Of course, I'm talking about Tina Pedersen. She's the CEO, the president, and founder of RAMP. All right. RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress. The mission statement of RAMP, very straightforward. We educate and advocate for accessibility and inclusion. We support all individuals with disabilities, their families, and allies in creating safe and barrier-free environments. They can be found at the facebook.com/ramp.org. And we've got a handful of other websites listed on our publicity, our run-up announcement, if you will, which includes a series of videos, which we'll talk about, that broadcast on Wednesdays, and of course the mailing list and the website as well. Tina, welcome to the Coalition.
Hi, how are you? Glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's great. You're very patient. It's been a chaotic couple of weeks here at the Coalition with the variety of social upheavals that we've been intimately involved in here in the state, as well as just the regular ongoing programming. Let's talk about RAMP. First off, if you will, give us your motivation for being the founder of this organization and tell us a little bit, if you will, what you're comfortable with about your personal history with disabilities.
Well, anybody who knows me for 5 minutes knows that I'm pretty much an open book. I'm a 4-time cancer survivor, breast cancer twice, bladder cancer twice. I'm a 3-time stroke survivor. And about 6 years ago, I walked into a 10-minute minor surgery, supposed to be in and out, and I took a stroke to my spinal cord and never walked again. I woke up with no use and feeling in my legs. So I had to learn how to navigate the world differently. I didn't let it stop me. I didn't let it overcome me. I still had 2 kids to take care of, and I was a cheer mom, a football mom, and I realized how inaccessible our world really was. And I wasn't missing out on anything. So I went full force in finding a way to make it better.
Now, in doing my homework, it appears that there isn't exactly a wealth of organization dedicated to folks with a variety of physical challenges and their accessibility in the state, which is kind of shocking. I mean, you know, if it were a state filled with older buildings, a lot of them that have been gloriously rehabbed, but at the same time retain the infrastructure very often of the 19th century, never mind any of the modern advantages. I work in one right now. We are broadcasting from one of those great old mill buildings that have got the high ceilings, the exposed brick that you could see, the shiny hardwood floors. Who is out there fighting on behalf of folks with physical challenges? And at what point in time did you realize that you needed to, that you couldn't wait for anyone, that you had to take the challenge yourself?
Well, that's just it. RAMP is the only one for accessibility and fully inclusion for wheelchair accessible. After a couple of years of advocating, I was appointed to the Governor's Commission on Disability, and I was voted as vice chair. Then I became the chairman of the Awareness Committee, and together we realized that there wasn't any organization out there just working for the rights of the average everyday person to be able to go out to eat, to be able to go to a funeral, to be part of a wedding, or to go anywhere. I mean, we're 30 years this year of the ADA, and still the majority of our buildings are not accessible. That's sad. I mean, you go to some place like Federal Hill, there is one restaurant that I can eat in and actually have the right to use the bathroom. A main street where a lot of our politicians use, that I can get into one restaurant. That's sad. You go to Newport and I can get off the very accessible C Street in Newport and then ride around for an hour and 45 minutes to find another place that I could use the bathroom or access a restaurant or a shop. They all have the inevitable one step, and we can't get in. So that's when I realized we needed to do something. So we decided to, instead of going at people, we decided to change it up and do it in a positive way. And we've been very well received. We're just about a year old in April, and we are so well received in the community. We've touched over 170 businesses in the first year.
So what is your process then? And I love to hear about positivity and cooperation as opposed to lawsuits. Businesses, and I'm not here to defend lack of access for folks. What I am, as someone who's a small business owner myself, I am constantly challenged by all the different things that you have to come up with simply to open the doors. So what's a process that, is this a business that you happen to try and gain access to, that you have difficulties navigating, or do people reach out to you?
Well, at first I was reaching out to them because nobody, for the most part, is inaccessible maliciously or purposely. Most of the time, they just don't realize that they're inaccessible. They have to be, you get the people who say, oh, it's only one step. And my response is, well, when you can walk through that wall, I will attempt that one step, because it's the same correlation. We can't get out of our wheelchairs. We can't, just do those one steps. And if there's one way in, there's one way out. So now you figure that there's a fire or an emergency in that building. Who is going to stop to carry us out if you carried us in? So it's raising the barrier and giving them real world affordable ways of doing it. Like if you have one step, you could get a portable wedge ramp that's probably somewhere in the area of $200 that you could pick up, move. Are you ADA compliant? No. But are you more accessible than you were 10 minutes ago before I got here? Yes. Are you making the process to start to be accessible? Absolutely.
So the question then is are businesses just simply haven't been exposed to the ADA, and is it just, when I say thoughtless, I'm going to take the positive approach and just say it just wasn't within the thought process. I'm from the New York City area originally, and I can't think of a major building in New York that isn't completely accessible. Is it just sort of a general working ignorance of the laws?
I don't know if it's a general working ignorance of the laws, or that nobody fully, you're so busy opening a business or having a business for all this. Number one, the first thing that I cannot stand is people who say that they're grandfathered in. That is not a thing. 30 years, you've had time to change over. Grandfathered in is not a thing anymore. And even like public places, you know what I mean? If you're open to the public, you're supposed to be accessible, but nobody's holding anybody accountable. That is the problem, because in order for a building to be held accountable, I, as a disabled person, has to use my own money to start up the lawsuit. Well, that's a lot of money and stuff when you're on disability to do that. So if we can show people that becoming accessible, we're basically begging you to be accessible so we can give you our money. Bottom line, you let us in, we're going to give you our money.
And again, the economic power, if you will, of the community that you are a leader in is significant. And again, what I love right away is the positivity. Now you've taken this to a whole new level. And again, if you go to the website, again, RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress, you right on the front, your goals. Let's go through each one of them, if you will. Elementary, middle school, and high school. So what are you're offering people a variety of opportunities amongst our young people to learn.
We just ask, we're usually the first interaction. If you don't have a disabled person in your family or in and around your main community, kids are not exposed to it. So we go in and we read books. We go in like 3 or 4 of us with different disabilities, and we let the kids ask any question that they want where the parents can't shush them. Kids are not going to learn unless they ask. And we're there willingly ready to answer their questions. I play with the kids a lot of the times when I go into schools is, what do you think I can't do from my wheelchair? I'm actually on the floor with them, rolling around. It doesn't look like they think it's going to look, but they haven't stumped me yet. So I'm known as the crazy lady in the wheelchair, and the parents will be like, you can't say that. I'm like, no, it's okay. That's what I tell them. You know what I mean? It's okay, because that's how they're going to learn, and that's how they're going to not be fearful of approaching somebody and helping somebody. And I'll tell you, we've touched over 30 school districts in the first year that we've been around. And the best thing is we're all about breaking barriers. The first barrier we break, everything we do is free of charge. We don't charge for anything. Nobody can ever say that they cannot afford to be evaluated for accessibility or to learn about accessibility. If you like what we do, make a donation to our organization.
Wow,
that's how we work.
That's outstanding. Now, let me ask you a question. When we were chatting online before we went live, I had mentioned to you the high school I went to in New Jersey, and this was the 1970s. Think of the movie Dazed and Confused, and let's just say I could pick out every person in that movie. There was a real person in my class just like that. But remarkably enough, in the small town I grew up in, it was a relatively new high school, and as part of the new high school construction, they added a completely separate wing to the building so that they could regionalize services for folks who were physically challenged. And there were some young people there who were profoundly challenged. Severely limited in their ability in motion and in sight and just everything you can imagine. So I grew up in high school surrounded by that. We all shared the same cafeteria. Many of the folks were in our class. At the time, they called it mainstreaming. In Rhode Island now, is that happening? It's kind of shocking for me to think that a young person can go K to 12 with not encountering other young people and being classmates and friends and clubmates and things like that of other young people who are facing challenges. What's happening there?
I do believe that they're doing a much better job, with the whole Best Buddies program and the intramural sports and the unity that they're doing, but they could always do better because, there are the profoundly that need to be in a segregated classroom, but there's somebody like me that only my legs don't work. Everything else of me works absolutely normal. I should be in an integrated regular classroom with everybody else. But a lot of these schools, like with the second floor or something like that, they don't know how to access me. So somebody like me would get put into the other classrooms when I should be in mainstream with everybody else because it's only my legs that don't work, but everything else does.
Right. We had young, and this is in a mill town in central Jersey, about 20 miles on the wrong side of the Holland Tunnel. And I guess I'm looking back in kind of a reflected awe because even some of the kids who were just in tough shape, and looking back, your heart breaks now. But they were in tough shape. They were just part of our lives. And again, if academically they could perform, they could get to any one of our classrooms. So I guess I'm amazed. I'm looking back on it. This is 40 years ago. So when I look at how much money is spent in Rhode Island school systems, I don't want to obsess over this subject, but it is shocking. It's a real eye opener to me. And it's something.
It's true.
So
there are so many that should be mainstreamed, and they're not.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that doesn't really help anybody. No. And equally, I mean, some of the folks who are also losers in that calculation, if you will, are folks who are able and are not then given the opportunity to work side and work along with folks who have challenges because there was just profound beauty in some of the relations that came up. I mean, we had folks in wheelchairs in 1978 attending our senior prom. That's how,
right.
They were
right.
Some of us were getting high together back in the high school. I mean, that's how just completely normal it is for me, even 40 years later.
Right, and that's how normal it should be for everybody. Because, like I said, most people, like there are a lot of people who are born with a disability, like whether it be CP or MD or MS or, you know what I mean? And they graduate to it. But somebody like me, people don't realize how quickly you could be part of this amazing community. I walked into a 10-minute surgery. My life changed like that. I walked into a surgery thinking I was going out for lunch that afternoon, and I ended up having to learn how to navigate the world from a wheelchair. Completely thrown in an accident, a diagnosis, a surgery, anything, anybody, a stroke could put anybody in this community. Let's make the world accessible so that's one less challenge that you have to deal with if that happened to you or a loved one. That's what we're all about. There are so many family members that I couldn't even say goodbye to because the funeral home wasn't accessible.
Wow.
How sad is that?
No, it's tragic, except that it's within our realm to adapt, improvise, and overcome. And I have to ask you, we've been back and forth a lot because it's been so chaotic the last couple of weeks. I have never sensed a single moment of frustration or anger. I won't begin to interfere with your private life, but how do you maintain such a sense of complete positivity amongst some of the most dire circumstances imaginable?
We are only on this planet for a very short blink of an eye. Make the most of it. I'm not missing a second of it. I got 2 children and 2 grandchildren to be here for. I can make a difference for every second that I'm breathing. I'm not going to miss it, and nobody should miss it. And that's what I fight for. I'm going to make a difference for every second that I'm here. Crying about it, whining about it, rolling up in a ball and giving up. Who is that going to help? Nobody, because no one's going to care. No one's going to see that, and I'm not going to make a difference. Getting out there, putting a smile on my face, and letting people know that I'm a force to be reckoned with, and I don't take no for an answer. I mean, I've actually gone to restaurants that I couldn't get into and popped up a plastic table on their front stoop and said, if I can't get in, you're coming out here to serve me because I want to eat here. And that opened their eyes, and they began the process of making it accessible.
That is outstanding. As someone who's done his share of picket lines and protests and rallies, that is just outstanding. I want to be around when you do that next time. Okay, just please invite me. I got to see that.
Absolutely, the table is in my car at all times.
Oh shit, that's great. Oh man, what the next area you talk about, and you touched on this briefly, is accessibility assessments. Now, do you do them? Do you have folks who volunteer with you who do them? How do you do, and what's involved in an accessibility assessment?
What I do is I call them roll-throughs. You don't know if a place is accessible, or at least wheelchair accessible, unless you have a wheelchair person go in there and show you. So I have a lot of businesses, like I did all of Free Play. It's a video arcade bar in Providence. And when I met Anthony, we did so much together, and he's like, well, take a roll through and tell me what you need. With no money and 15, 20 minutes of time, we changed a couple of door hinges, we moved a couple of video games, we changed a couple of seating areas, we fixed the bar, and his place is now 97% fully wheelchair accessible. And this is an old abandoned Coliseum with all video games, and I can go and enjoy myself and be with everybody else in the bar.
Wow,
that's what matters.
Wait a minute, what was the name of that business? I want to promote.
Free Play.
Okay, right downtown by the club district.
Yeah, it's the old Coliseum.
Right.
I think it's still, the building is the Coliseum, but Free Play is on the bottom, and then they have the club upstairs. I mean, obviously I can't get to the club upstairs, but when 95% of it is accessible, I can't complain. We don't want you to go broke. We don't want you to, and now they're building a brand new place in Worcester, and from the ground up build it 100% wheelchair accessible, because he now knows what's to look for to do that. We also did a roll through for the Rhode Island Foundation, a place that gives to all of these charities. Again, not a lot of money. It took a time, lower this shelf, take these corners off, widen that door. That room doesn't have to be wheelchair accessible. The thing is if you have two conference rooms, make sure one is wheelchair accessible. Make sure if you're having a meeting and somebody could be coming to your meeting that's in a wheelchair or uses a walker or a knee scooter, you leave a chair out so they could just roll right up and not have to worry about moving a chair or be thoughtful. Think of who you have coming. I'm sure if somebody had Congressman Langevin coming to their office, they would go out of their way to make sure it was wheelchair accessible and there was no things. That should be the norm. That should be, because you never know who's going to show up. And I show up at places that people don't expect me to.
Interesting. Now, you also do some work at a variety of the college and technical skills. How important is it to instill, with young people, I would imagine a lot of it is just getting around the fear factor, creating an understanding so that the little kiddos are comfortable and not, and not judgmental and don't engage in bullying. And that's its own challenge in and of itself. But at the college level, you've got young folks who are embarking on a variety of careers, some of them including design, construction, all of whom could take advantage of getting to understand the challenges that face that face folks. What specifically do you say to people of college age to give them a better understanding?
It's like I said, we have been so welcomed at the college age. I mean, we have worked on so many projects, from accessible desks to accessible shopping carts to accessible clothing, to pamphlets to hand out to the business community. We actually put a bunch of college students in wheelchairs and we took them around Providence so they could see it from our point of view. The younger the people are that we get to touch, the easier it is to change their mind and open their minds, because like I said, anybody could end up like this. And knowing ahead of time, you will know how to take care of people. You know how, that they would feel. You won't know unless you ask. Ask respectively, and you're going to know. And we're so well received. And one of my things is I will only work on a project with a senior is if their end finale gives it off to another college student coming up the next year, so it continues, so it doesn't just fall off and drop. So we are in Brown, we are in URI, we are in RISD, we are in Johnson and Wales. We are in so many different places now that we work with the students and do their senior projects and confer, and I go and speak to the students, and so well received and so welcome, especially when we work with up and coming OTs and PTs and nurses. You can work on your friends, but if they're not actually disabled, you don't get the full panel of what it's going to be like out in the real world. We go in and we let them work on us. And I'll tell you, it's a whole new perspective for them.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Folks, if you're just joining us, Tina Pedersen, she's the president, the CEO, founder of RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress. We are, as always, the Coalition Outrage Porn Free Civilly Disobedient Media. We broadcast on Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. And of course, we also broadcast on Twitter and YouTube, Twitter at Coalition_Radio. If you're listening for the first time, if you could take a moment to like or follow us on any of those platforms, we would be grateful. Independent media relies on social media to rise above the noise, the white noise, the Sturm and Drang of, well, let's just say the conventional media. Tina, I just want to continue going just through all of these programs. Now, you've got also involvement with, obviously, the community itself. Talk about connecting people with proper resources and what's available to help them in their journey.
That is one of the biggest things that we do, is we are the middleman for resources. When somebody says, it took me a year and a half being in a wheelchair to finally get a ramp for outside of my home so I could actually get out of my house. There is actually no dealership that you can buy an accessible van so that we can drive and we can take care of ourselves in the state of Rhode Island. We have to go to Mass. If you buy it in Mass, you have to have it serviced in Mass. That's all our taxpayers' dollars out the window, because there are so many people who are disabled that could utilize this in Rhode Island. So what we do is we vet resources. We talk to Oakley's Home Access is one of the big ones that I use about making their home so people can age in place, so people can be disabled and stay in their homes. We all saw how bad group homes and nursing homes and stuff are for, you know what I mean, for this virus. Let's make it more accessible. I'm actually looking for a house. I have been looking for an accessible home for 2 years to find an actual wheelchair accessible home. The problem is number one, a building or apartment complex other off the first floor is inaccessible. Because what's the first thing that goes down in a fire or an emergency or on a daily basis is the elevator. Now the place that you're supposed to call your safe space, you are in panic every day. Is the elevator going to be working? Am I going to be able to get out? Is the firefighters going to find me? So
Right.
anything above the first floor is inaccessible to a wheelchair user and not panicking. But we should be living out in the community. They're paying landlords right now to rent homes, but they're not paying them to make them accessible so somebody like me can go and live there.
Hmm.
There isn't anything. Only 4% of an apartment building has to be accessible, but doesn't mean it's wheelchair accessible. It could be accessible for the blind or for the developmentally impaired or for another where it's not wheelchair accessible. So that's not okay. We actually got a home through Habitat for Humanity that we're waiting for them to finish for us to move. But it took us 2 years to find that. What about we just donated right before the pandemic 75 walkers, wheelchairs, and canes to the homeless. And they're homeless because they can't find an accessible place to live that's affordable. It's another big project that we have to work on.
And again, and I guess the purpose of this conversation is to provide, if you will, an infomercial for what your organization accomplishes. I think the unintended consequence of our conversation is to begin really scratching the surface and understanding all the unanticipated side effects and consequences of facing a physical challenge. Again, as you've said more elegantly than I ever can, that you're going to be able to expose weaknesses and flaws and challenges at a level that is just impossible for me to comprehend.
And it's impossible for a lot of people to comprehend. That's what I'm finding. Like, people just don't understand it. And I've gone as far as talking to a lot of construction companies, and they're told to build them to ADA adaptable. ADA adaptable is not accessible. Complete difference. If you build them to ADA accessible, wheelchair accessible, that's when you're going to get people in. But adaptable, that still means that the tenant or the landlord will have to spend extra money, again, after the fact, to make it wheelchair accessible, which they're not going to do. And that's the problem.
In terms of building codes here in Rhode Island, do they just essentially cast something in the direction of ADA compliant, or is there aggressive enforcement in the building codes?
No, I mean, there's not aggressive enforcement. Look what happened to the veterans home when 23 doors now have to be replaced because the occupants can't get through the doorways in their wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. It just falls through the cracks. It just falls through the cracks.
And what's astonishing about that situation, as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the design for that building, if you will, for the refurbishment of that building and the expansion of that building went through extensive evaluations by the organizations that funded it, many of which were government tied. So and I've got to believe, and it's interesting that they haven't published the numbers to repair it, but to knowing whom I do in areas like hospital construction, simply building and rebuilding those doors is not, a couple of contractors getting together on a weekend and and moving a few joists and getting a skill saw out. I mean, we're talking about a significant redesign of that entire portion of that room.
Well, the problem is they built the doors smaller than the old veterans home. Building to code and building to the bare minimum is not acceptable anymore because you got larger, bigger, motorized wheelchairs now that minimum doesn't work for anymore. You need to build to the expecting of bigger and better and have breakaway doors or bigger areas so people can get through. Building to minimum, I mean, like even the fact of the house is out and about. How does somebody like me even go look at a house? You know what I'm saying? Like I
Right.
can't go and look at a house to see if I could get in and stuff like that. We're not thinking ahead. We need to start thinking ahead and we need to start saving money by building and thinking ahead. We should not be opening businesses in this day and age that are not ADA compliant, but we still are. Every day we still are.
It's counterproductive on multiple levels. Even on its most basic, as you pointed out, you're excluding an entire segment of the economy, many of whom are
Do you
folks.
know how many people? Yeah, people. It's not just like we helped this one business. This is one of my favorite stories. We made this one business fully ADA compliant. He spent all of this money, and I mean, he got away with a lot less than what he thought he was going to spend. And it's fully ADA. He says, but I don't see a ton of wheelchairs coming in here. I said, we're not a cult. I said, but if you see one wheelchair, they come with friends, they come with family. There are women with baby carriages. There are people on knee scooters. There are so many people that walk among us who are born with no knees. With their disability, they can't bend their legs and they can't do stairs anyway. So you wouldn't even know if people have walkers. Wouldn't it be a lot easier for an older person with a walker to maneuver a ramp than it is to maneuver stairways? Think of the liability that you're opening yourself up to if that person falls on your steps with their walker.
What's
You're
interesting?
saving money all the way around.
No, absolutely. What's interesting is, and you raise a point in my mind. So many tourism guides, so many shopping guides. You see these government issued, downtown. Let's just say, for lack of a better example, come to downtown Wickford, which of course is a beautiful spot, a lot of older buildings, and you'll see the logos next to each store, and it'll say handicapped accessible. How often are those actually accurate? And is there any idea or movement for your organization to put out some type of listing to promote, in a sense, taking it from a positive perspective, to promote folks like the arcade or the business you just spoke of, who've invested significant amount of effort, thought, and money into making them truly, I'll call it handicapped or challenged comfortable, where you just don't even think about it. You just have a comfortable, almost normal access to the building. Is there anything else like that? And what are those
there is
guides
actually,
like?
yep, there is actually a website out there. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, and that's really bad, but my brain's not functioning right now. But there is a website out there that gives you the levels of, it doesn't say that it's fully, it will say if it's fully wheelchair accessible, but it will also tell you, okay, it's got good parking, but you can't do this and you can't do that. So you know what kind of accessibility can actually access that place. Accessri.org is the website. I will send that to you later. But there is a website, but to me, it doesn't do, I love it because it's a starting point, but it doesn't do enough. There are so many restaurants that I go into, and the handicap stall, my wheelchair doesn't fit in. I can't close the door. I can't turn around. I can't function in the bathroom because they're just too small. Or they see extra space in their bathroom and they stick supplies there, which is where my wheelchair footrest was supposed to go by. Or they put the baby changing station in the accessible stall. Well, then that just takes up more space for my wheelchair. Like it's a thoughtful thing. So I just go in and I'll talk to the manager or the owner or whoever and I'll bring them in the bathroom and I'll show them what I can't access, what I can't do, how they can tweak it to make it better. We just did the Hayes Library in Providence right before all of this started. And for very short money, the Hayes Library, one of the oldest libraries, even all the way up in the archives, is now fully accessible. Because I showed them, move this, move that, take this thing out, move these tables over. You know what I mean? I showed them where their errors were, and you can do that a lot of the times by just moving things around, and being aware of what you need to have clearance, and then don't use it for storage. We have a
Yeah.
hospital in this state, and I don't want to call them out, but we have a hospital in this state that I went for a procedure, and I went to use the ladies' room before I went to the procedure, and the nurse who was taking care of me said, "Oh, just leave your wheelchair here and walk to the bathroom because it won't fit."
What?
So I said, "Well, I'm sorry, because if you're the nurse taking care of me when I'm under, I don't think this is a good idea if you can't figure out that I can't walk to the bathroom." But they use their bathrooms for storage. Well, that doesn't do me any good when I go in there with my wheelchair.
Wow. Now,
So it's just people and changing their perspective and looking at it from another point of view.
what's fascinating to me is, given the amount of money that is spent on accessibility, just from your conversation and from the experience that I've heard, arguably through the news channel about the Veterans Home, how little actual hands-on, for lack of a better term, there is in both the design process and the initial construction with folks who actually face these day-to-day challenges. Has anyone ever called you during construction and said, "Hey, why don't you come by so we can figure out so we don't screw this up"?
They are now, because I've partnered with a lot of construction companies, and I said, when you're doing a new build, bring me in. Bring me in. I'll do a roll through. It doesn't cost you a dime. We're free. Call us up. Bring us in. And a lot of them are actually doing it. And if I can't go, I send some of my counterparts to go. I mean, we did a whole access of the new bridge that they just built in Providence. Do you know that's not up to code?
Really?
I went with a bunch of people who designed it and showed them exactly, and they're like, "We didn't even think of that." I said, "Now we're here and there's just like 7 to 10 of us on here. You picture this is crowded during a Providence Fest or a Pride Parade, and people aren't paying attention. Not only the wheelchairs are going to have a problem, but people walking are going to have a problem with some of the ways that the steps went off, and the wood and the clamps between them and the steepness of some of the things. A mother in a baby carriage, if she slips her hand off of that on one of the side roads, the baby's going in the water. There's no way to stop it, because the incline is just too steep with no handrails and no nothing. Now you picture somebody in a manual wheelchair trying to roll that. I mean, they're working on it, they're fixing it, but why wasn't that thought of prior? We could have saved a lot of money by doing it prior than doing it after the fact. And that's all I want. I want people to think ahead. Bring us in. We're free of charge. You know what I mean? We will help you out in any way, because, like I said, we are fighting to give you money. We want to spend our money in your places. And if we can get in, we're going to advertise it to all of our family and all of our friends. I have family and friends who will not go to a place that's not accessible.
Just out of a personal respect for you and the challenges you face.
Yeah. So, I mean, look at all of the people you're missing. I mean, when I go to the Providence Civic Center with my grandchildren, they're 2 and 5. I have to sit in the accessible seating, and I get one seat next to me, which they always overbook, and it's crowded, so you can't even see the show anyway. And they sit 3 or 4 sections over. What's the point of Meme going with the grandchildren when I can't even see their faces light up?
Yeah, no, it's interesting when I think about it. I've observed this without being sentient enough to understand it, and I think what happens is folks who haven't faced these challenges or don't have near close friends or family facing these challenges, like everything else, are oblivious, and I don't think it's intentional.
And that's just it. People are not doing it, for the most part, people are not doing it intentionally. They're doing it because they just don't know and they don't realize. So that's why an organization like us is so important. Do you know how many weddings and events that I go to now? I work with country clubs and event venues, and I roll through saying, grandma might be in a wheelchair or have a walker, or there might be a guest that comes that has an e-scooter, and I will roll around and say, nope, can't have the tablecloths like that because that's a hazard. If you have all high tables, manual wheelchairs aren't going to be able to have a seat or anything, so make sure you do a combination of both, or move this, give more room here, fix that, free of charge. So when they have their event, Everybody can just roll right in and participate, because you never know if somebody had a hip replacement, a knee replacement, or is using a knee scooter for a period of time that's going to come to your event. Think
Right.
ahead.
And and minimize or eliminate those awkward moments, the moments of disappointment, the tears, the frustration. For particularly in times like this, when family contact is clearly something we can't take for granted. You've got a couple of interesting programs going on. You talk to me about the Ramp Red Bag Carrier and what's involved with there.
I love my red bag. Look, I got one right here with me. It is all of your medical information, non-computer, non-tech based, all at your fingertips. When I had my last strokes in September, it literally saved my life. I rolled into the hospital because I knew I wasn't feeling good. And by the time I passed out on the floor of my van, I had this in my hand. Has all of my medical information, who to contact, my medication, and everything that I need to know at the tip of your, and the only ones who see it are the EMTs or the doctors who take care of you. But it works for everybody. If you have an allergy, if you have a drug addiction and you have a drug of choice, or you don't want somebody to be contacted if you overdose, or you do want somebody contacted if you overdose. If you have an anxiety or a mental disorder and you have a trigger, write it in your red bag. You know what I mean? The only ones who see it are the EMTs and the doctors who have to take care of you. Nobody else. So when I go out with my friends, I said, remember, I'm a red bag carrier. Make sure my red bag is with me. And we mail these out nationally every day. They are all over the country, and we're actually working with FEMA and the Rhode Island Emergency Management. Well, we were until the whole pandemic, and so we kind of like put it on ice for a little bit, but they're buying into this, and they're going to be handing them out around the world. So it's a thing that works for everybody. I don't know how many people will say, oh, I have it in my phone, or I have it on a USB. Well, that's great. If there's a hurricane or a power outage, or your phone isn't with you, or who knows what your code is. Don't die right now. Give me the code to your phone so I can get your medical history. No EMT is going to do that. I have spoken to fire departments across the state and beyond. They absolutely love this because it's got a little clip. It's on your person at all times.
Wow. There's something to be said for simplistic, low-tech approaches. I've always been profoundly amused when the PR flag for Verizon gets on WPRO and announces, "Listen, just go to our website." Hello, yeah, no, but at the same time, this simple, thoughtful act of pulling this all together in one spot has profound implications. Because
I can't
of all
tell
these
you
challenges.
how many I can't tell you how many letters of thank yous that I've gotten from family and friends of how this saved a loved one's life. And the best part of this is we make no money on these. We sell them for $3 a piece, but for every one we sell, we replenish and we donate one to the homeless, to the veterans, to the group homes, to the people that can't afford them. I've sat out many a times on the streets with the homeless and helped them fill them out so that they have them on them at all times. If something ever happened to them, God forbid, they have all of their information all filled out in these little red bags. So we donate. We don't make any money on them. We donate them out. And if you're a business and wanted to buy a bunch, you could choose where they get donated to.
No, that's outstanding. You've also got a couple of different Facebook pages. You've got a Facebook page for the organization. And by the way, we've got links to all of this at on the facebook.com/the Coalition Radio in the run up to the show. And we'll reproduce those links as well as the Access RI link when we share the YouTube video of this show. And throughout repeats, this will take place during the week. But you've also got a Facebook page dedicated to video, different Wednesday activities that you have. Tell me a little bit about that.
That is my What to Know Wednesday series, because I post them on the actual Ramp page. But when somebody needs an inspirational video or they just want to sit, and it's kind of like my own little YouTube channel, but on Facebook, it's much easier to view. Mm-hmm. It's every Wednesday I go live and I talk about a different topic, a topic that most people or the average person doesn't think about until it's brought up to them. So our What to Know Wednesday series is It's usually no more than 10 minutes, usually less. Sometimes they're only like 2 or 3 minutes. And it's just a point of view giving you a different perspective to think about for the next week coming ahead. They're very well received. We get thousands of views on them every week. It's usually always me. We're going to be expanding once the world opens up to, bringing some guests on and to giving other people a chance to talk. But since I've been kind of locked in my house since March 6th, I've been doing them all. But it's just a whole page, and you can just go video after video after video and learn something new. And that's what it's intended for, to get a different perspective and to learn something new.
And these are just inspirationals that you've come in contact with, different ways of go ahead.
Yeah, it all started in September. On September 30th of last year, I took a double stroke. I already have no use of my legs, and after the stroke, I ended up with aphasia, so I had no speech, and I lost my left arm. So I had one working limb left. And I basically got sent home from the hospital saying, you're already disabled, you can't expect miracles, with no therapy. That wasn't going to happen. As you can tell, I love to talk. That wasn't going to happen. So we did a GoFundMe, and my friends helped me get some therapy. So what I did is I went online every week and I showed them what exercises I was doing to get my left hand back, and what speech therapy I was doing to get my speech back, and how to learn to talk and to slow down and to get my enunciation. So that's how they started. And then people wanted to know more and more stuff. So we picked up topics about, during COVID, how to do an accessible delivery, because this no contact drop at your door is great, except if you're in a wheelchair or you're blind or you use an assistive device or you can't use your hands. Having it all left at your doorway isn't going to do you any good when you live home out in the community by yourself. So we took it on as working with restaurants and how they could do accessible, asking the people if they needed an extra accommodation, or how they could be thoughtful, or how they could think about somebody else during this time. So they keep expanding. So they change every week.
No, that's outstanding. So that is, and we have links to both Facebook groups on there. So if you were a member of your family, and I'll tell you this, from my experience over the last couple of days looking at these Facebook pages, it's equally important for someone who has a family member or close friend to view these and take the time to go through these different videos, to look at the resources, because the way that you can sort of casually introduce them without feeling like you're invading people's space, if you will, without sounding preachy, is just to get comfortable with what you have an opportunity to bring to your family member, friend, close relative, etc.
And the nice part about it is they're all Facebook Lives. So they're very easy just to click on through Facebook and watch. You don't have to sign into YouTube or, join the YouTube page. I mean, we have a YouTube page too for the people who like YouTube. But these are very quick, easy videos just to click on and watch, with no extra added things to do to give you a different perspective.
Excellent. Now, we've only got a few minutes left, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about, you've been recognized by American Women of Service. Tell us about this and how that came to be. I know your son was involved. Give us and there you are. If you go down and scroll down, you'll see you wearing your crown. Fabulous.
I am so proud of this title. American Women of Service is an organization based completely on civic and community service and giving back. It's women empowering women through civic and community service. It's completely based on, last year I was honored to represent Rhode Island. I was the only person in a wheelchair against so many women who walked. I ended up with second runner-up overall. I ended up with overall speech award, overall role model award, the Presidential Service Award, a couple of the memorial awards. By a few hours being there, no one saw the wheelchair anymore. I could compete and be with all the girls. We do a service project when we go out for the weekend. We give back, we donate, we support each other. It's such a wonderful thing. And I'm honored to be the 2020 Elite Rhode Island again. I'll be traveling out to Portland, Maine in September, to hopefully being the first disabled person to win the national title for American Women of Service, and show anybody else in my predicament anything is possible, and don't let anything stop you. It's one of my most proudest things that I get to do, because I think I've logged right now over 3,500 hours of service hours just in the last year, even with COVID. Wow. Anybody can do it. You got to put your mind to it, and anybody can do it.
So your message to folks right now, because in the early days of this COVID crisis, there was sort of an upbeat, we're going to take it on, we're going to beat it approach. Right now, people are beat up. There's no question about it. You're facing the reemergence of this disease, which many of us had predicted, but still, that's far different from the reality. Folks who've been without their businesses, without their jobs for months now, these are tough times. But if you could,
you know what the good thing? You want to know what the good thing about all of this is, though?
What's
there
that?
Is something good at this. You are all getting a small glimpse of what the disabled community deals with on a daily basis. Right. You can't go to your restaurants with your friends and family. You can't go out. You can't go here and there or anywhere. That's us on a daily basis. The world will open up for the rest of you. We still won't be able to get in unless everybody consciously makes an effort to let us in.
So how do you then, what's your recommendation to folks who are down in the dumps? We've all been a little bit guilty of being self-absorbed, present company included, over the last few weeks. What's your message, to people how to fire themselves up and to use the military term, adapt, improvise, and overcome?
My best advice to you: we are on this planet one short period of time. Make the most of it. Anything is possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm nothing special. I'm nothing different. I just have a lustful life. I love my life. I love my family. I love my friends. I love to be active. Just love your life and find out that there's always something better. Open your ears, open your eyes to a new perspective, make a new friend, and just get out there. Stop making excuses and make a difference. As my favorite saying is, don't just sit there, make a difference.
Wow. Words to live by. How can folks, and we call this part of the show shameless self-promotion, how can folks donate, whether it be time, money, services, materials, to your organization?
All of that is listed on our website, www.rampisinclusion.com. You can buy a t-shirt and wear a logo and wear it proudly. There's some fun ones. There's some for service animals or regular animals. You could make a straight donation. You could buy a red bag for a loved one, support somebody else, or invite us into your place and let us success. Talk to us. Let us help you get more business. Let us help you make more money. Who doesn't want that? Especially now.
Wow.
Let us in. We'll spend our money. We love you.
Listen, that's outstanding. Tina, first of all, thank you for your patience over the last couple of weeks as we tried to figure out how to pull this together. Not because of any issues on your side, just because of the kind of chaos that we're part of every day. God bless you for everything you do. As I always say,
I have a comfy chair to sit in. So a quick funny story before we leave. It's great when you can use it to your advantage. I remember going to a concert, and when I got there, the gentleman at the door says, "I'm sorry, all of our seats are sold out." I said, "It's a good thing I brought my own," and I rolled right past him. Nobody knew what to say to me. I got to watch the whole concert from the front row because I wheeled myself right in, and nobody knew what to say to me. So be assertive and just be you. It's so much fun.
Wow. That's outstanding. You grace us by your appearance tonight, and you make us better, and that's more than I can ask really of anyone. Tina Pedersen, she is the president, CEO, and founder of RAMP. Real Access Motivates Progress. I think we have to talk offline and find a way to make these appearances somewhat regular, particularly when there's big deals or big happenings. I love your positive approach to this. That you're not going to you're looking to enhance people's businesses, enhance people's lives. You're not looking to sue them into oblivion. You're looking really to raise us all up, and that is phenomenal. Positivity
will get you anywhere.
Please feel free to share with us businesses who have gotten your A+ for effort and for doing that, because ultimately those are the businesses.
They're all listed on my website. As I do them, I post them on my website.
Okay, great. Then I'll find that and put that out there because, the positive approach is to reward those folks who've simply done the right thing when no one else is looking. So we need to make sure people look. So Tina, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's
thank you
let's
for the
talk
opportunity.
All right, buddy.
Okay.
We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network here at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at coalition_radio, and of course the mothership both at coalitionradio.us and coalitionradionetwork.com. We're going to sign off for this evening, but if this is the first time you're listening to us, either live tonight or through the miracle of our multiple Facebook retweets, we'd ask you just take a moment and like and follow our pages. Again, for independent media, that is our lifeline to somehow rise above the white noise that constitutes most of major media. The beauty of this format is that we can have extended conversations with people in the community and really achieve a sort of a level of understanding and knowledge of their work, their actions, just in a way that really conventional media can't. Folks, stay tuned. We'll see you soon.